All right, Tay, you were just up at Bungie checking out House of Wolves, specifically what we can talk about today, PvP and Trials of Osiris. So why don't you go ahead and tell me what that is all about?
Sure. So, it's funny, we had this conversation last week almost, but this time I actually have details to flesh out for you. Trials of Osiris, it is a new endgame PvP activity that's 3-on-3. Elimination mode is a new game type. It's like a deathmatch game type, but it has revivals. This is Bungie's new kind of like, if you're really into PvP, here's your kind of like, almost like a raid, but obviously not a raid. But it does have almost like raid-like rewards. The raid-like rewards are based off of wins. So if you win 2 wins, you get a blue package. 3 wins, you get another kind of blue package. At 5 wins, you get the armor, the weekly armor that the vendor has. At 6 wins, there's a legendary package. At 7 wins, there's a weapon that rotates weekly as well. And then at 8 wins, there is another legendary package. In order to get into the Trials of Osiris, you need a Trials Passage. A Trials Passage is basically like a ticket, but it's kind of like your scorecard, your visual aid, so to speak. And you can have 3 losses per Trials Passage. But you want to try to accumulate as many wins as you can. Depending on how many wins you get, you can buy whatever the vendor has and everything before it. So like if you win 5 times, you can buy the armor and the 2 blue package. Or if you have 7 wins, you can buy the weapon and the legendary package and everything before that. This is a endgame activity for PvP. It's going to be really intense. There is no matchmaking, so you're going to need to have, 2 friends or 2 people you find from Destiny LFG to party up with. And it's actually really fun, but it's also really stressful because there's a lot of teamwork going on. And so, you're trying to figure out the map for the week, which there's only 1 map per week. There's no actual rotation. And the reason Bungie decided to do that is because they want the players to be able to really hone in on their strategies and learn the map so that they can go, okay, let's all go this way, or let's make a play over here. And also that will change the armors that you wear, right? Like you want to try to build up super more, so maybe you're wearing a helm that gives more orbs or something like that. So there's really kind of like a deep meta with this, and it'll be interesting to see how it works because the way they look at it is that the best teams are going to win. There is no like balance of like you have 8 wins, I have 7 wins. That sounds like a fair fight. It could just be like you're on your 7th win, I just started, and you might roll me because your team's probably really good if it's got 7 wins. So that's kind of my one slight concern, is that there is no balance, so to speak.
I gotta ask though, like, do you think that's like smart game design, or do you think that's just kind of like a cop-out? Because this game has typically had a lot of barriers to entry, and like over time those barriers have been too much for a lot of players. For example, like in a raid, getting 5 people together every single week is kind of a big deal for a lot of people, and a lot of people can't do that. So like, what is this bringing to the table that wasn't in Destiny previously?
There's always going to be small barriers of entry to these kind of things, but Bungie's trying to open those up, right? Like you said, a raid requires 5 other people. At least in this case, this only requires 2 more people. And that, like I said, even in the office, we can always easily get kind of 1 or 2 people to play with us if they're free, right? But getting 5 people is hard. So I think that's already good. That's like a plus, right? You're getting a smaller group, so it's not as hard to play. But in terms of just the balance part, I mean, yeah, you might get rolled a couple times, but I mean, you have 5 days. It's a weekend event. It's Friday to reset, which is like Tuesday morning. So you have plenty of times to try. And also there's actually 2 sets of Trials of Osiris armor. So one is gated through wins, which is like the gold colored one that everyone's gonna want to try to get. But there's also like a lower tiered one that they didn't specify like what it looks like, but you can just win randomly from playing the Trials of Osiris. So you still, like, people will still have avenues to get like loot and gear from the Trials. It's just how prestigious you are. But I think this is gonna be fun because it's kind of like WoW Arena, where you did that weekly and it was, either you do 2-on-2, 3-on-3, or 5-on-5. In this case, it's a 3-on-3, and it's something for the PvP players to look forward to, and also the wider community if they want to get into it, right? And then there was one thing I didn't even talk about that kind of helps you through the Trials of Osiris, which are consumables that you can buy from Brother Vance, who's the NPC. One of them gives you Mercy. It's Mercy of Osiris, where it forgives you for your first loss. Or there's like the Boon of Osiris. When you win your first match, it counts as 2 wins. So they did add these little touches to help you get through the Trials of Osiris, even if you're not like an intense hardcore PvP player. And those are purchased through passage coins, which is like a new currency, but it's something you get from the Crucible. So when you play the Crucible, you can earn passage coins. And then something that's really cool this time is Bungie has realized that like the Crucible itself wasn't as rewarding as maybe some people wanted it to be, or maybe it just wasn't enticing enough to make people that like PvE content a lot to play it. They're really making it rewarding this time because the daily mission now for the Crucible will give you a reward pack. And in that reward pack, there's engrams, motes of light, and passage coins, and like maybe some other things too. And then on top of that, every Crucible match now, you'll get double the reputation, double the marks. There's gonna be more engrams that drop. So they're really trying to like push you to be like, hey, this is actually worth playing.
Tay, being more of a PvE guy, is this stuff enough to get you into Crucible again?
I mean, for me, I generally focused on PvE because that's mainly where the good loot was. But now that Trials of Osiris does have its own specific set and it has its own weapons, and the Crucible is gonna drop more engrams potentially, I'm totally back into it. There's 4 new Crucible maps. One is the Thieves' Den, which is on Venus. It's really cool. It's like a fallen hideout. Timekeeper, which is the PlayStation 4 exclusive map, which is actually, interestingly enough, the only PlayStation 4 exclusive this time. So there's no strike or weapon that the Xbox players will miss out on this time. But the Timekeeper map's really cool too. It's kind of like this clockwork structure that the Vex made. There's these like force field walls almost that like you look like you could kind of jump through and phase through it, but you actually can't. I actually killed someone trying to jump through it. It's pretty funny. And then there's another map called Widow's Court, which actually was probably the funnest one for me because it kind of reminded me of like a COD kind of like map, and COD multiplayer obviously is fun and addicting. It's got really long, narrow streets where you can snipe for once. Even like one of the control points is in a church, so you kind of fight in a church, like a broken down one. And I think you would like it because visually it looks really cool.
Although I gotta ask, vehicle maps?
Yeah, so unfortunately there aren't any vehicle maps this time. I did ask Bungie, so what was the thought process behind, not adding a vehicle map this time? They've had some before, right? And they added one in the Dark Below. But basically they said they were focused on these maps, and it kind of makes sense because they're smaller to medium-sized maps, which kind of fits the mold of what Trials of Osiris is about, right? Like it's a 3-on-3 deathmatch type gameplay, so you want to not have to find each other, and vehicles obviously affect that. And because the Trials of Osiris is power-based, so it's gonna matter what gear you're wearing, what level you are. You can start the Trials of Osiris at level 20. I'm not really sure why you would want to go in at 20 because you'll get murdered by any 30 plus. Of course, stay tuned. May 6th, I'll have more information. We'll have another discussion. This time around PvE, the Prison of Elders, the new strike, and also just like upgrading, ascending your weapons and gear. That's very interesting. It's very fun. I can't talk about it, unfortunately. I had a lot of fun. A lot of strategies that you're gonna have to think about. So,
awesome. Thanks, Tay.